welcome to Moral Side of the News, our weekly discussion of today's top local, national, and world stories from a moral, ethical, and religious viewpoint. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHS Crusade for Children. I'm joined today by a distinguished panel of local religious leaders: Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition; Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville; Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks, the Temple; our special guest today, Deacon Greg Gitschier, former U.S. Secret Service agent and current deacon at St. Patrick Catholic Church; and Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Creative Spirits Behavioral Health. For the second time in just 2 months, an assassination attempt on former President Trump. It happened last Saturday at his golf course in Florida.
The second time in just 2 months, the FBI is investigating an apparent attempted assassination on Donald Trump's life. Former president was on his West Palm Beach golf course with donor Steve Witkoff near the 5th hole when a Secret Service agent suddenly saw a barrel of a rifle sticking out of the fence just 300 to 400 yards away.
What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
Sources say Secret Service fired 4 to 6 rounds as Trump was rushed to a safe area. The suspected gunman went running, leaving behind an AK-47 style rifle, 2 backpacks which contained ceramic tile, and a GoPro hanging on the fence. An eyewitness catching the suspect fleeing.
Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tag, which was great.
With that information, police were able to track down the car. This is the moment authorities surrounded the suspect in the vehicle.
We knew we had the car, everything lined up. We surrounded the car and didn't give him a chance to flee. He had no alternative but to surrender.
Multiple law enforcement sources tell ABC News the man detained by police is 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Roth. While authorities are working to determine a motive, sources familiar with the investigation say they are looking into whether Roth had any frustrations with Trump's position on Ukraine. He frequently posted on social media about the war, seen here in a 2022 video in Poland around the time he went to Ukraine.
And then we're going to stay as long as it takes to get every Russian out of Ukraine.
Trump traveled back to his Mar-a-Lago estate and a social media post thanking law enforcement for keeping him safe, saying the job done was absolutely outstanding. His son Eric Trump telling Fox News, "My father is running out of lives." It was just 65 days ago that Trump survived an attempted assassination at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The former president was grazed by a bullet in the ear, ducking for cover behind the podium. And this morning, there are questions once again about how a gunman could get this close to a former president and Republican nominee.
He's not the sitting president. If he was, we would have had this entire golf course around it. But because he's not, the security is limited to the areas that the Secret Service deems possible.
So many are calling the protection last Sunday a success. The guy was captured. But many security experts are calling it a catastrophic failure. A month after the first assassination attempt, a person with an assault rifle was within 400 yards of the protectee. We'll get to some of that in just a minute with some of those details with our special guest, but I wanted to open up first to our panelists for your thoughts on this second attempt on the former president.
I heard you were about to say something, Shawn. It sounded like you were about to say this production. I don't think it's a production by no stretch, but this trend is developing. And it's hard to really put a lot of credence in what the candidate Trump is saying, but I place some trust to a great degree on what the Secret Service is saying. And I trust that they're giving credible information about what happened. Thank God it was a success. He was not hurt or harmed, so I take credit for that being a success measure because he could have been hurt, of course. So it is. It's yet another cycle. It's a cycle that we're in. It's a world we live in. Guns are everywhere. You can have a shooting anywhere. It did occur at his own private property there. Like he said, they do give security at a different level at properties that he's not. If he was president, of course, it would be a much wider net that would be extended around there. But it's still yet another example of the cycle we're in. And I'm concerned they're claiming, the Republican side is claiming blame for the Democrat and rhetoric, et cetera. Well, that's totally not true. But I do place some trust in what the Secret Service is saying about this particular incident, that it was a credible threat and it was responded to a great degree and with some success.
I was surprised to read that the head of the Secret Service said, we have a problem, and to really own that, and I admire that. I think that if Trump would not go to his own golf course, unscheduled, unplanned, it would be easier for the Secret Service to protect him. But as far as, what I've seen and heard and read, like you said, they did prevent, something horrible from happening. Yeah. And I want to echo what my dear friend said, that the bottom line here has to do with the accessibility of guns in our country and high-power weapons, automatic weapons, and I know you want to speak now, so I thought that was a good segue for you.
No, man. No, my comments, this morning I was preparing for this a little bit. I started to see the Idiot Box, the television on the back, and another channel, one of the cable channels, was doing a presentation, 2-hour presentation, on the attempts of the presidents. Now, I can go back to JFK and whatever forward on that, but I'm amazed at how many times someone tried to crash a plane into the White House, someone drove by shooting at it. I mean, all these different idiots out there doing stuff of this nature, which reminded me what's happening now. A quote supposedly is attributed to Mr. Mandela, who said that I never lose. I either win or I learn. Now, if someone like Kennedy is assassinated, so that's a loss, and the president gets shot, that's a loss. But still, at the same time, I think what I would see is the individuals, maybe Greg, you can fill us in on this, but it seems like the guys are learning for each one of these episodes how we do something different and to protect the president, whatever. But it's just, again, a topic's come to my mind, again, for elucidation by Deacon Greg. But there's a difference in basically protection for the sitting president versus the ex-president versus a candidate for presidency. So all of those kind of go into the mix as well. We want to try to protect people. I agree with you. Too many guns in this country. I say that as a gun owner. But too many people who are, excuse my French, idiots who have guns. That's the issue. But I would say this is it something that we can change overnight? No. But it's something we can learn from and maybe perhaps adapt, not just for protecting presidents, but maybe some of our kids in school at the same time.
Amen.
Definitely, if there are some internal aspects of the Secret Service that needs to be worked on, that's with any organization
Sure.
that is geared for protection of any type. So there's that constant evaluation and SWOT
Correct.
analysis,
Right.
or whatever type of ways of improving service. My regret is that that we have this environment of increased
Right.
angst and rhetorical animosity that's taken place, that has stoked over the past 10 years. And I'm saying this intentionally because we've had in the past 10 years unnecessary, violent rhetoric, primarily coming from one political side of the spectrum, that has stoked up in this country. Add to that COVID impacts that we're still experiencing collectively as a country, that has shifted. Add that to the proliferation of guns that's in our community. It has shifted the ease of danger that is among elected officials and leaders who need protection. And I say that to say that yes, there may be some things that needs to be improved with the Secret Service. The Secret Service is working with a different context. I mean, our context is not the same as it has been. And to your point about history, there's evidence that the Secret Service has learned from the various different things that have happened when leaders and presidents have been attacked. I regret the blame game that's happening. This is totally unproductive. And particularly coming from politicians and people who are, yes, wanting to make sure that our, elected officials, former elected officials in the person of Donald Trump and others need to be protected, and there's this continued and is an appropriate desire to see people protected. But in my view, it does not help to develop what needs to be developed when there's this political conversation and unnecessary blame game that immediately gets to the place of blaming somebody, blaming this person for their rhetoric, blaming the Secret Service for not doing enough. That is never productive. Right. So I'm fully supportive of the Secret Service. Have no doubt that they will come up with a way of doing what is necessary to keep persons that are under their charge protected. But this political game that's being played of immediately blaming whatever party is just unproductive to me.
And that's one of the moral issues I would see, is politicization of something of this nature for the benefit of whoever or whatever. So, but again, part of that too is, I think, I would see the materials we receive from Congress and whatever, and individuals saying that this was a terrible issue, whatever, terrible failure. I think that could be part of that whole thing we see just in society in general. It's just kind of like we say the right of privacy. We have a right to know, people will say, and we want to know when we want to know it. We want to know it then and there, which we can't when something like this, all the facts are not in, et cetera. But I think we need, like you say, I concur, we need to let the powers that be deal with this issue, learn from the situation, and then protect better in the future.
But the politicalization of language and the power game, I mean, someone recently said something they knew to be not true, but knew would get a lot of bandwidth for them, a lot of airtime.
Well, that's what Vance said. Vance said he created the story in Springfield.
Yes.
Because he knew it would rain. He said he literally, quote, created the story.
Right. It was totally untrue about people, Haitians. I mean, it was hate talk. It was xenophobia. It was. It just goes on, and it was solely done. I mean, it was totally fabricated because
with ill intent. With ill intent.
With ill intent, because the goal was, airtime and to grab people's attention, and that people in this society can think so little of someone's life, or their livelihood, or their families, or their dignity, and how they are. I mean, these are working people who can pay taxes, which a lot of corporations don't even do, and it was intentionally, hatefully done, just for the spotlight, and that the rhetoric of
well, and that's what we want to see not happen with the shooting type.
Right, right, and the ratcheting down the language of there's going to be a fight, or take to the streets, or whatever it is. It's just fanning the flames.
I was thinking about, Tony, to take a departure from the political arena. Even the Pope has a Pope mobile in a way that did not exist, 30 years ago?
Yeah, that's right.
That is bulletproof, that gives protection, and he is a apolitical figure. So it probably speaks more to the times in which we live in, that an environment of violence and political figures are just a target for any number of reasons, whether it's the political rhetoric or not. It's just the times we live in many respects, and this is just a microcosm of a bigger issue that's going on in the world.
That's probably a perfect time to bring in Deacon Greg. He was on the Pope's protection detail.
So I sure was.
Speak to that. It might be why you're a deacon right now.
Probably so. I was getting ready to retire and work for an elite group of former Secret Service agents, making $1,000 a day, flying in Learjets around the world, protecting CEOs, big money CEOs. I was ready to do that until I got assigned St. John Paul II's detail, and it had a profound effect on me. And I've been wearing this collar after 5 years of study, and this man was one of my instructors, by the way, Father Tony. But yeah, it had a profound effect on me, and so my friends are like, "You're giving up $1,000 a day to go work for free for the church?" I'm like, yeah, but I hope we have a good retirement plan. But anyway, what you all saying, the first thing that came to mind, listen to y'all speak, was that the Secret Service has got to stop assigning assets, which would be agents, counter snipers, surveillance units, drones, you name it, because of the title of the person. They have to assign it to the threat level of the person. So you can't, you know, and somebody correctly said whether you're the acting president, the former president, or running for president, those are titles, but it's which one has the highest level. And I think we'd all agree Trump by far has the highest threat level of anyone in a long, long time.
But he's the greatest threatener too.
Well, I'm just saying, we're talking about where do we put our assets? The one that has the highest threat level. So I definitely would like to see that. I'd love to see the politics out of the Secret Service, the director and the heads on that 8th floor, as I would as the FBI, and as I would as my friend from the CIA called me this morning from overseas. They have the same problem. When you get politics running these agencies, they get this power and they get to manipulate things. And people will argue, Attorney General, the same thing. So, you know, I just like to see the politics out of it. And, you know, what has happened, the 2 assassination attempts were clearly because we did not have enough assets on the ground to protect, in this case, President Trump, in both cases actually, where, you know, if it was a current president, they would have had all those areas of the golf course swept. I've worked numerous golf courses, certainly up at Kitty-Bunkport with both Bushes. I lived in Hawaii as an agent, so President Clinton and a lot of presidents would come play golf in Hawaii. So I have a lot of personal experience doing security on a golf course. And the situation that we had here was a very well-known spot for media photographers to get a picture of the president. It was right in the corner of an intersection of 2 streets. And President walks off one green, and he lines up on the tee box of the other green, and the shooter was in a position to, they said he was 300 or 400 yards, but if President Trump would have walked up to that green, he would have been probably 30 yards. And if he didn't stick the barrel of that AK-47 through the fence line, we're not sure if we ever would have seen him. I mean, is that a divine intervention? I don't know, but sticking that barrel through there is what got him caught. Incidentally, when they said he had ceramic tiles in his backpacks, those are what SWAT team guys use as plates in front of their bulletproof vests. The ceramic tile is known for stopping a lot of rounds. So apparently he had the wherewithal to have these vests that he could put one on the front, one on the back in case people started shooting at him. Number 2, he had a GoPro set up to videotape this assassination attempt, okay? Number 3, the gun he had was a serial number was filed down. So there's a lot of questions. I don't have the answers. There's a lot of questions. Where did he get that AK-47? He's not from that area, but he had one. He was all set up. He knew where to set up in this thick brush. So, you know, for being an out-of-town tourist, he seemed to be pretty well prepared to make this assassination attempt.
It seemed, I'm just having a left field perspective, but that barrel sticking out of the bushes, what first came to my mind was Elmer Fudd attacking Bugs Bunny.
Elmer Fudd.
I mean, that if he was really that, seems so dumb
I agree.
to do.
My question is that you made the statement that Trump is of all of the persons that's out in the political field right now, that Trump is the higher threat level. Can you help me understand that?
So what we do as a Secret Service, part of our investigations is threats against the president, even if it's overseas, which I did. When I lived in Hawaii, any threat that took place in Asia, they literally flew me over to Australia, Bangkok, Manila to interview these people with local authorities to see, is he really a legitimate threat? Most of them aren't, but every once in a while you do get one that is. But so we give them threat level 1, 2, or 3, right? So the ones with the worst threat level need the most protection. So, you know, some guy might be in a bar and had too much to drink and said some things and, you know, he regretted, you know, he blamed it on the current president, whatever. But that threat level is where we put our assets. That's, once again, assets, metal detectors, right? You know, the counter snipers, all that stuff. We had a very successful unit that I was a part of called the counter surveillance unit. We would go into crowds and we'd mesh in with the crowds, not telling, you could tell we were Secret Service, we dressed whatever their dress was, and I'd have a female counterpart with the earpiece in her ear covered up by her hair, and people would be saying, hey, check out those two over there, or we would check out these other people. And we could actually take a picture of them and send that picture, and they could do one of those face recognition things. So they didn't have any counter surveillance units at all. We didn't have any drones up at either location. This guy that tried on the golf course was there for 12 hours, according to his cell phone.
That's right.
So there was no proper Secret Service sweep through those bushes. Once you sweep the area, you have to post the area with either a police officer or a Secret Service agent. Pennsylvania, they said, well, you had 21 agents there. No, we had 3 agents there. 18 were HSI investigators, Homeland Security investigators, best known for hunting down these people that kidnap kids into sex slavery. So that's not their expertise, protection.
We didn't have anyone up on that roof.
That's right.
That should have been. That should have. Yeah.
Right. That's
should have had our own
basic mistake. That was an inexperienced agent did that. Their supervisors should have easily caught that. In my decades, that would never have flown. Yeah. But it did, and they just need to clean house.
So what make that which makes Trump the highest threat level is what?
People saying they want to kill him. They get
There's
letters.
More and more.
They do social media. They do letters. They do texts. Matter of fact, we have known for a while. I say we. I've been retired for a long time, but I'm on a text group with people with 150 years of service to the United States Secret Service, and we talk all the time about this stuff. But we knew Iran has offered some very big millions and millions of dollars to shoot him, and that's why these two guys, to your point, Elmer Fudd, they seem like amateurs. What happens if you put a highly trained, special operations guy that doesn't make mistakes? And if he wants to get $1 million, whatever the millions of dollar bounty is that Iran gives. So,
well, they use the term, the language. They don't use language like assassination. That because of the title. It's because he's an ex-president that used the language assassination attempt. That's title specific. So that the title does carry with it a higher threat level because the language changes at that altitude also. So I think that's noteworthy. It's a lot here. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a smart guy out to U of L, real smart guy. He was saying that every system has weaknesses. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, sure.
Every round since the last incident in July, the Secret Service exposed weaknesses then. Of course, this exposed yet another weakness. Every system, I don't care how strong it is, there's a weakness. And so that's a reality. At some point, every weakness will be exploited and exposed. So there's no way you could spread your resources so wide to protect every possible scenario because the resources cannot stretch that far because you're stretching to the limit and then it will expose yet another weakness. If that weakness is exposed. Look at 911, it was exploited, but box cutters, because the weakness was exposed. We've had security for years at airports, but a small weakness was exposed, and that breach just made it possible for some evil actors to act. And so there's always going to be some weakness at some point exposed.
This could be one of the reasons. This could be one of the reasons why, as I understand it, the acting head of the service has said, now, if you need anything, what do you need? And his comment was, give me more
resources.
More resources, more resources.
And one of the problems with, the weakness becomes exposed is that then it gets out into the public. I mean, you can be sure that, God forbid, there's another attempt. But if there is, they're not going to have their gun barrel sitting right outside, poking through the, and I mean, the public wants to know and feels they have a right to know, but a lot of the security measures, I assume because of my own experiences, that we don't know half of the security measures going on. And but you have to be quick. You got to respond, and it's especially in today's world. Things just the situation on the ground changes so rapidly, and I don't know whether it's 3D gun printing or just technology just keeps getting faster and faster.
Is there any assessment from your colleagues as to why the increased threat on former President Trump? Do they have any ways of?
Why the reason?
My wondering is that is because of the rhetoric that's been built that has come from him.
He's generated that energy.
He speaks out. It's kidding. My dad was an FBI agent in New York City for 15 years, so I grew up. The guy's from Queens, and Trump is from Queens. they're not the tough kids from Bronx or Brooklyn. They're not the rich kids from Manhattan or the island, Staten Island. They're the guys that they're always trying to prove themselves. So they're famous for counterpunching.
Selling wolf cookies. They're always woofing.
They counterpunch. And you notice how he used to say on Twitter, he always had to respond 3:30 in the morning.
Right.
I think that's his personality. To me, that's Queens guy. No disrespect, I have friends from Queens, but that's President Trump just counterpunches, and he can't. But he does say a lot of strong stuff.
Another question. I'm gonna call Emma Ford the last time. But how in the world did he find out that he was going to be at the golf course? How did he know?
Well, it's called an OTR, which means off the record. So technically, we just found out maybe that morning or late that evening. So that does make I'd be an idiot if I don't say, well, I wonder if somebody could have tipped him off. Somebody in the staff, maybe the Secret Service, maybe the House people, because an OTR is off the record. There's no news to it. There's no media is aware of it. And that's the go play golf, something like, so we could do stuff like that.
And that could be someone who let it slip in a bragging way, not intending harm in any way.
Yep.
But
it was known that corner of the shrubs is where the photographers got their pictures. So people did know that. Now, who told this guy that if he's an out-of-towner? It makes you wonder.
He could have put 2 and 2 together, knowing the off record typically might mean playing golf.
He plays a lot of golf down there.
It could be a default deduction.
Yep, yes, sir.
We have about 2 minutes left, really less than that. But going back to July 13th, briefly, Senator Blumenthal came out this past week and said the American people are going to be shocked at the results of their investigation. And then he said if this doesn't change, it's going to happen again. He made those comments last Thursday, and then Sunday, it almost happened again.
Yeah.
Just in the minute and a half we have left, where do you see where we are in the investigation of July 13th?
You got a lot of politics in the agencies I've named, and I think sometimes they're working off their agendas, not these street agents, the people I know, people in our church, my friends at the gym that are FBI or Secret Service agents or other federal, but the politics are controlling a lot of information. I think that's what he's referring to. Everything can't come out about Pennsylvania. And I think people will be shocked when they find out exactly what did happen and what didn't happen and why didn't he have more assets and all this other stuff, And then there's a lot of, I think there's going to be another attempt. I hope I'm wrong, please. I hope I'm wrong. But I'd be very surprised if there wasn't another attempt. We don't know who's come over the border in the last, so many years. And you're going to tell me if we had a chance to go after Russia and China by open borders, you don't think we'd send in our special ops guys? I would almost swear it. I definitely think we would.
And it's not just over the border. There are people in place.
Of course.
For decades before they get activated.
You're right. Yep. So I think there'll be another attempt. Yep. Sorry.
No, you're good. And to your point, Gaylia, what we just saw this week happened with Israel and that long-range master plan with the pagers. It's just, So anyway, thanks to our special guest this week, Deacon Greg Gitschier, former Secret Service in St. Patrick Catholic Church, Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville, Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition, Rabbi Emerita Gaylia Rooks with the Temple, and Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray with Creative Spirits Behavioral Health. Thank you for a great conversation this week. We'll see you again next week. Have a great week.
Thanks for